Can you safely say that archaeology has not proven the existence of men like Jehoiakim? Here we have a stone tablet bought by Russia with the inscription, "Herein lies the bones of King Uzziah, king of Judah." Can you safely say beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Bible is guilty of fraud?
The end of the Tower of Babel story has not yet been reached. Even in this present day, still one more chapter is unfolding. When Nebuchadnezzar still reigned in the city of Babylon 2,500 years ago, he left his legacy for future kings, inscribed on cuneiform tablets to repair and rebuild his temples and palaces. The Bible says that ancient Babylon, the mightiest and wickedest city of the ancient world, will be rebuilt before the final battle at Armageddon. These ruins, lost for centuries under the shifting sands of Iraq, have now been fully uncovered. In these recently made films, it can be seen that the reconstruction of ancient Babylon is, in fact, a reality. This has long been a pet project of the Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein, and his engineers, architects, and archaeologists assure him that the city is rising once more. Several of the buildings have now been completed. Plans are also underway for a complete reconstruction of the Tower of Babel.
On the face of it, the story of the burning bush is pure fiction, or at least mythology. It smacks of pious enthusiasm. The idea that a bush can be burning and still exist is just not within the realm of possibility.
The biblical story of the burning bush is completely true and totally provable.
Now, friends, let me say at this point that if we were in a courtroom trying a criminal for any criminal activity that he did, before you can pass a verdict, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that it's possible for a plant or a bush to burn without being consumed. I can do it by pointing to men that have credible testimony. Although I believe that the burning bush was in fact a miracle of God, I can prove it in the natural realm that a plant or a bush can burn, be on fire, and not be consumed. Watch this.
At the foot of Mount Sinai, one finds the monastery of St. Catherine. The local story of the shepherds, the nomadic people, the Bedouins, do hold that the actual bush that is found inside the monastery is still the same bush.
I can't confirm or reject that the bush growing at the monastery was the actual burning bush, but it is a specific desert plant that fits the biblical description. It's the Fraxinella or gas plant, Dictomnus albus, a sturdy perennial bush with white or purple flowers common in the Middle East. The bush produces an oil so volatile that it can be ignited by the sun. The oil quickly burns up, but the bush itself is not damaged.
Now you see, friends, my job is to just show you that such a story could have happened. I mean, it's a scientific fact that there is a plant out in the Middle East that produces oil, burns up, but the plant comes out unharmed. Friends, for you to pass judgment on this and say that the Bible is guilty of fraud denies very factual evidence, giving you a reason to doubt.
The idea that hundreds of thousands of Israelites passed through the Red Sea is crazy.
Based on recent developments in physical oceanography and meteorology, we can prove today that crossing of the Red Sea would have been possible.
The main purpose of the Exodus story is not to describe history. The main purpose of the Exodus story, as it was created by the pre-scribes who lived in Jerusalem, was to glorify their God and to make their God look greater than any other God. And what they used was a series of old legends and distorted memories which they put together to create this story which has no relationship to history.
There's an ancient Egyptian papyrus document called the Ipuwer Papyrus, and it recounts in eyewitness fashion the plague of blood, the plague of cattle disease, the plague of strange fire phenomena, the plague on the firstborn, the strange darkness, all the events that we previously thought we only knew about from the Bible. We can read about it in the Egyptian records.
There are certain hallmark pieces of pottery that we look for in attempting to trace the Exodus event and the migration of the Israelites into the land of Canaan. One of these pieces is this very nice pilgrim flask that's very nicely painted, and the shape itself apparently indicated the product that was shipped in it. It comes from Cyprus, but it's important for dating the other material that we find in connection with the Israelites. Another piece that we have is the Philistine beer jug. The Philistines were very fond of drinking beer. It was fermented right in the jug, and you can see it was sieved as it was poured out into the drinking vessel itself. The Israelites copied the Philistine ware, which was very highly painted, and came out with a very poor reproduction. So we can always tell when we come into a site that the Israelites themselves have now moved on to this site. Daily, there are more and more pieces of evidence that are being excavated that are helping to demonstrate the fact that the Israelites came in the Exodus and settled in the land of Canaan.
One of the interesting questions that Emmanuel Anati has answered in his research, and he's one of the top Sinai archaeologists, is the question, what were the Israelites doing during the 40 years that they were wandering in the desert? Well, Dr. Anati has discovered something like 30,000 rock inscriptions which he dates to the time period of the Exodus, in which he believes the Israelites carved on those hot weathered rocks.
New findings are being unearthed at several archaeological sites, such as the unusual pottery items in the rock drawings, which give hard evidence that the Exodus really did happen.
The idea that the Red Sea could have parted into two walls of water, as portrayed in movies by Hollywood movie makers like Cecil B. DeMille, is just not credible.
At this site in 1799, Napoleon's engineers discovered an underwater ridge some 600 feet wide that extended from shore to shore. His engineers calculated the right time for crossing this 5.2-mile strip when the east wind would blow sufficiently to clear the seabed of water. Napoleon, however, barely escaped with his life when a sudden change in the wind's direction brought an onrush of water that covered the strip in just a matter of minutes.
Dr. Paldo and I were not so much interested in whether crossing of the Red Sea occurred or not, but we were intrigued by the possibility that perhaps there is some explanation for a similar process. So what we did, we developed what we call in physical oceanography a mathematical model of the part of the Red Sea where